Hello, beautiful humans. Happy Sunday evening, and welcome to a live edition of the Midlife Revolution. I'm your host, Megan Connor. And the reason that I decided to focus on forgiveness this evening is because last week, when I did my analysis of the phone call between Lori Vallow and her son Colby, there was a commentary at the very end of the video where Colby offers his forgiveness to Lori. She offers her forgiveness to Colby. And I went through some discussion about what forgiveness means and why it is such a difficult concept for those of us who have been the victims of abuse in any form. And I got so many comments, both on the video itself, on the channel, and also through email from so many people who wanted to offer their opinions and ask their questions about what does forgiveness look like. I wanted to address this topic a little bit more in depth tonight. But as always, we're going to do some intentions for the coming week. And I also have a little bit of an announcement for the channel that I want to talk about before we dig into the topic. So, a lot of people have asked me in the past about the concept of group coaching. I obviously do one on one coaching. You can, if you're interested in one on one coaching, you can go to my website at third-first.com/coaching. There are links in the description. There are links everywhere where you can go click on that. You can get a free 15 to 30-minute consult where we just get to know each other and I get to talk about what resources I have that can help you with your particular issue that you're wanting coaching on. And we can find out if we're a good fit for each other. I don't ever want to charge anybody for coaching before we have a chance to visit with each other together. So one-on-one coaching is something I've offered for a really long time. It works really well for a lot of people. But some of the feedback that I've gotten is that some people want a more group setting for coaching. One is for financial reasons. If you want to spend a little bit less money for group coaching. And another is just for, I don't know, a little bit of anonymity. Some people don't want to necessarily tell me all of their struggles, but they want to hear what other people are going through and participate in a little bit of a more anonymous way. So I decided to start offering group coaching in a way that we can connect in a little bit more of an intimate setting than what this is, the live, where obviously everybody can comment, everybody can share. Some people are less comfortable with sharing their thoughts and opinions in this kind of a live format where literally anybody can come on. So group coaching offers you the opportunity to be in a smaller group of people, 10 to 15 people, where you all sort of get to know each other. You're all sort of working on similar things. And then you can choose how much you want to share and how much you don't want to share. So the entire point of group coaching is to offer a different environment for those people who, for whatever reason, don't want to do one-on-one coaching. And I've kind of struggled with how best to offer this and the best formats, the best payment options, all of those kinds of things. And all I'm going to say is that throughout the entirety of my time doing this channel, just really since April, so it's really new, I have made lots and lots of mistakes and had to make lots and lots of adjustments. So what I decided was I'm just going to put out the group coaching the way that I have it envisioned right now. And if it doesn't work for people, I totally trust you, beautiful humans, to give me your feedback about what's working and what's not, and how we need to adjust and change things. So right now, if you're interested in individual coaching or group coaching, the best idea is to go to third-first.com/coaching, and you can sign up for that free consult. That's going to connect you with me one-on-one. It's connected to my calendar, so it makes an appointment for me. And we meet via Google Meet, and you basically tell me what it is that you want to work on. And then for the group coaching idea, I can plug you into whatever day and time works best for you, whether you want to do it weekly or just monthly. So right now, what I'm going to offer is two options for group coaching. I'm going to offer a weekly option and I'm going to offer a monthly option. And just depending on what your comfort level is, you can sign up for one of those two things. But the first step is to go to the website, third-verse.com, sign up for that free consult. That way I have your email address, I can connect with you, and we can connect one-on-one, and then I can plug you into the program that's going to work the best for you. So for right now, that's the solution. If it turns out that that doesn't work out well, we will adjust. I'm always willing to pivot and find something new. Alternatively, you can also connect with me via email at Megan, Megan, at third-verse.com. That gets right into my inbox. Now, I will say I do get overwhelmed with the amount of messages sometimes, especially right after a live or right after an episode. Sunday evenings and Wednesday evenings when I have my lives, that's when my inbox tends to get clogged. So it does take me some time to work through those messages. So if you're wanting to just schedule an appointment that gets to me right away, the website is the best idea. If you don't mind waiting a little while for a response, the email is a great idea too. So I just wanted to put that out there and to say I'm offering group coaching now. I think it's a great way for people to like come together as a group. We're all working on the same thing. You get direct access to me so you can ask me your questions. I'm going to address those personally and give you sort of a tailored plan for how to help you work through whatever it is that you're wanting to work through right now. So it's good to see all of you in the chat. Sorry, I haven't looked exactly at everybody who's here, but just welcome to everyone. I'm excited to dig into this concept of forgiveness because I did get so much feedback after my episode where I talked about Colby's phone call with his mom, Lori. So if you haven't watched that video yet, I encourage you to go ahead and watch it. I know that on Colby's channel, obviously the full phone call is there. That was a little bit much for some people. It was a little triggering for some people. So the video that I did, I just played a few clips from the video and talked about them individually, pointing out the manipulative techniques that Lori uses to try and get Colby to basically behave the way that she wants him to behave. It's a good way to look at manipulative behaviors in general and then apply that to the different situations and relationships that you have in your own life. And just look at it and say, hey, is there a situation in my life where somebody's trying to use these techniques on me to get me to react or behave in a certain way? So I'm hoping that will help a lot of people with relationships that you currently have in your life. At the end of the video or towards the end of the video, I talk a little bit about the concept of forgiveness, and I approach it from the standpoint that forgiveness is really a religious idea. I don't know that forgiveness is really talked about in the secular world very much without some kind of religious attachment to it. And the most common religious attachment that I see is with biblical religious ideas or biblical forgiveness, basically. There are a lot of different ideas in the Bible about forgiveness. And I think one of the things that I addressed in the other video was the fact that Mormon scripture even takes it one step beyond and talks about forgiveness in even a totally different way. So what I want to do tonight is just talk a little bit about different people's ideas about forgiveness, especially in a context where someone has been the victim of some kind of abuse and they're being pressured to forgive their abuser. I want to play a little bit of a video by Dr. Ramani, who is somebody I really respect greatly. She does a ton of great content on her channel about narcissism. And she went on another podcast where the interviewer was asking her about forgiving narcissists. And I want to play that clip and talk a little bit about her response. There are so many different concepts in the Bible about forgiveness. And one of the things that I want to point out for those of you who just have read the Bible for a really long time and you just sort of absorb the things that are talked about in a religious context, I just want to say that the Bible is not univocal, which means that there is not one particular voice that dictates everything that's in the Bible. The different authors of the different books in the Bible do disagree with each other on certain things, and the four Gospels are one particular example of this. It's four different authors talking about the life of Jesus Christ from four different points of view and written at different times in history, some as many as late as 80 years after the death of Jesus Christ. So it's interesting to look at the four gospels and see there are lots of ways that they agree, but there are lots of ways that they disagree also. So if you're looking to the Bible to be something that presents a cohesive view of history or of religion or any of that, it is not that. The data do not support that. And what makes it difficult for a lot of people is that if you want to believe the Bible literally, you have to cherry pick the text. You can't believe the scriptures in Leviticus and also believe the scriptures in the New Testament. A lot of people will say, okay, what happened in the New Testament sort of voided out some of the Old Testament, the law of Moses, and things like that. And this is not meant to completely get into a comprehensive discussion about believing the Bible or not believing it, or believing it literally as opposed to believing it allegorically. But I just want to point out that if you believe the Bible literally, then you have to cherry pick what you're going to take out of it as truth and fact and fiction. If you believe it allegorically, then you have to kind of make a decision about what is important to focus on and what is not. And there are so many concepts throughout the Bible about forgiveness, really from the Psalms all the way into the Gospels, that it's really difficult to rely just on the Bible for a concept of forgiveness. So I just want to put that out there for anybody who is looking at forgiveness from a religious standpoint. And I do think that it's important to consider that forgiveness is a largely religiously based concept. There's the concept in the Bible that about God's forgiveness to us as human beings, and then there is a different concept about us forgiving other people. And a lot of times people want to base their real life forgiveness model on what is portrayed in the Bible. And I think that's problematic from a couple of different standpoints. Number one, biblical forgiveness really, I personally think, should be limited to the relationship between God and his worshipers. If you're seeking forgiveness from God, that's a very different thing than seeking forgiveness from human beings. And I also think it's very different than someone who has harmed us seeking forgiveness from us. So I want to separate all of those things out, because I think that forgiveness between you and your higher power is between you and your higher power. I think you asking forgiveness for things that you've done wrong and looking for absolution is a completely different concept from you forgiving other people in your life. So I want to separate those things out. And I think it's really important to do that, because if you have a belief in God or a higher power and you're asking that being for forgiveness, that relationship is very different from a human being trying to forgive another human being. So I want to separate the concept between deity, humans asking forgiveness from deity, and humans asking for forgiveness from other humans. The other thing I want to say is that our choice to forgive people is based entirely on our own capacity to gain acceptance, and one could say radical acceptance over the fact, like, this thing happened, it was a horrible thing, I accept that it's part of my life, and now I'm going to make a decision about whether to forgive the person who caused this horrible thing to happen. And there's a lot of misunderstanding about, okay, do I need someone to apologize before I forgive them? Or do I need somebody to recognize that what they did was wrong before I forgive them? There's a lot of discussion about whether it's helpful to put the onus of forgiveness on me as a person who has been harmed, or put the onus of forgiveness on the person who has done the harm and have them ask for forgiveness. So that's another thing I want to address really quickly. I don't think that it is helpful from the standpoint of someone who is asking forgiveness. If someone has harmed us, I don't think it's helpful from our point of view to wait for that person to apologize or to ask forgiveness. So just to reiterate, because I got a little jumbled in my thoughts there. If someone has harmed us, I don't think it's harmful for us. Sorry, I don't think it's helpful for us to wait for that person to ask for forgiveness, or to wait for that person to confess or apologize or acknowledge that what they did was wrong. Because in a lot of instances, if we, as the person who has been harmed, if we're waiting for that, we could be waiting for a very, very long time. Because a lot of times the person who harms us doesn't realize that they harmed us, or won't accept responsibility for that harm, and therefore will not apologize, will not ask for forgiveness. And if we are reserving our peace to wait for that, we could be waiting forever and it could never happen. So I think that we, as people who have been harmed, need to get to a place where we don't need the person who harmed us to acknowledge that they harmed us, or to ask us for forgiveness, or to apologize. Because ultimately, we have to make peace with ourselves, whether or not the person who harmed us does that. I think it's so, so important to let go of the expectation that someone who harmed us is going to ever acknowledge that what they did was wrong. Because a lot of times people who harm other human beings don't even have the capacity to admit that they've done something harmful. So I think that's really important. We need to get to a place where we are going to seek peace on our own level without the acknowledgement of anyone else. Part two is, a lot of times we get guilted, whether it's by our family system or our religious system, into offering forgiveness in a situation where what has been done is really unforgivable. And we get a lot of messaging from the outside that tells us, oh, you're going to feel better if you forgive that person. You're going to feel better if you let go of resentment. Forgiveness is not about them, it's about you. If you can let go, you're going to feel better. And this is where I want to come in and play this video, this interview with Dr. Ramani, because I think she has some really interesting and important points for us to consider. Your own peace is more important than anybody else's peace. And when you're in conflict with someone, like they've harmed you, and you're trying to get to a place of peace after that harm, there are so many things to consider. And I just want to go through this video a little bit and talk about a couple of different things. And then I want to get your comments and your experiences, because I had so many people comment on the video after I did that unpack of Colby's call, his interview with Lori, where he confronted her about what really did happen with the children. So many people commented about forgiveness and what that looks like for them. And I would really love to hear your thoughts, because I think we as a community can help each other to heal better if we share our experiences around forgiveness and what worked for us. Because every circumstance is so different and every individual is so different that I don't think there's any one good definition about what forgiveness looks like. And so I would love to have you guys share your thoughts about it and share what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So I'm going to go ahead and share this video, and I'm going to stop it a little bit on the way through and just see what you guys think, and get some comments on everything. So, by the way, for those of you who don't know, this is Lewis Howes. He has a podcast, a channel here on YouTube, and he's interviewing Dr. Ramani Durvasula, who is basically an expert on narcissism. And she has so many helpful videos on her channel about how to learn about narcissism, how to navigate it, the different types of narcissism. I highly recommend her content. She's very, very well informed, well spoken, concise in her descriptions. And her content has helped me immensely in figuring out my relationships with different family members. So I highly recommend her channel to everyone. I highly recommend Lewis Howes as well. He has a lot of inspirational content and a lot of content that he posts that helps you sort of reframe the way that you think about the different relationships in your life and coming out of surviving trauma and abuse and different things. So I'm just going to play a little of this video, and then I want to comment and hear your comments as well.
How do we forgive someone who's hurt us so badly as a narcissist?
Maybe we don't. Maybe we don't. I have to tell you that something that's very important to me is that no one ever feels that they have to forgive someone for hijacking their soul, because maybe there is no forgiveness for that. The pressure to forgive has led some people to feel guilty their whole lives, prematurely forgive. There's a really interesting body of literature out there that suggests that if we forgive someone who reperpetrates, it significantly harms the well-being of the forgiver. So all of our research, forgive, you'll feel better, forgive, you'll free yourself. Not so much, because not everyone leaves these relationships. Some people continue to have contact with the family members. They continue to stay in the relationship. They may not have a choice. Not everyone can leave. This isn't as simple as, you're narcissistic, I'm leaving this relationship. It's not how it works most of the time. It's, I've got this really toxic parent and I still have to interact with them. I have this really toxic ex-partner and we still have to raise kids together. I have a toxic marriage and I'm staying in it, right? And so, and these are people who have broken people down to their core, left them feeling like they're not enough, left them feeling that they were worthless people, left them not knowing who they were anymore, left them doubting reality. Is that forgivable? I'm not so sure. And so I will always tell everyone I work with, this is a personal decision. It is not right to forgive. It is not right to not forgive. It is not wrong to forgive. It is not wrong to not forgive. You have to do what makes you whole. If you look at the definition of forgiveness in the dictionary, it says it's to cease to feel resentment. Let it go and cease to feel resentment. And I asked him, do you not feel resentful? And they're like, I feel resentful. Oh, you didn't forgive them if you still feel resentful as hell. So resentment does not push forward healing. I think that it's one more place where people are forced to be inauthentic. Some people will say, and I'll be frank with you, Lewis, I have probably I can think of a half a dozen people, narcissistic people in my life. I am now no contact with, some I still have contact with. I don't forgive them. I will never forgive them.
Really?
Never.
Even if you never speak to them again?
I don't speak to them again. I will never forgive them. What they did to me, because what it changed my view on myself. I spent years crawling out from under that rubble. I still doubt myself. I still don't feel safe in the world. They took away my safety. How the hell do you forgive that? I don't. And I sleep fine at night.
That's good. I guess as long as you feel at peace.
Right? I feel totally at peace.
Well, that's good then. Yeah.
Because what bothers me is I know they're out there doing this to other people.
Yeah.
How do you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is one of the reasons why I personally feel like it's really difficult to forgive someone, because in my mind, okay, so going back to like this religious concept of forgiveness, when I was a religious person and I was in the LDS faith for the majority of my life, and being a good Mormon meant that you forgive and you forget. And I saw so many of my friends, my peers, go into the bishop's office and talk to them about abuse that they had suffered. And the bishop would tell them, you need to forgive this person because God forgives them. And the Mormon concept of forgiveness is like, if you don't forgive someone, then your sin is worse than what they did to you, which I think is such a harmful concept, because it's like, okay, this person, in my case, the people who abused me when I was a child, when I was used for creating pornographic content or child sexual abuse material, those people stole my childhood from me. They stole my ability to have curiosity and wonder about the world when I was 7 years old. Forgiving them from the Mormon standpoint meant that I forget about what they did and realize that they're children of God too, and that it's up to God whether or not God is going to forgive them for that sin. And I don't get to play any role in that. And what that meant later in my life is that when other people perpetrated abuse against me, that I had to forgive them. And then God got to decide whether or not they get punished for that. So what that meant to me is I don't report it. I don't talk to other people about it. I just forgive them and move on with my life as if it never happened, because forgive and forget, right? And so one of the assaults that I suffered, I never reported. Actually, more than one I never reported. But the one that I'm thinking about in particular, I never reported because I blamed myself for putting myself in that situation. And then I got guilted into forgiving the perpetrator and then forgetting about it. And so therefore, I just had to absorb what happened to me and say, God gets to decide whether or not that person gets punished. My role is to forgive them and forget about it and never talk about it again. Where the most healthy thing to do would have been to report it and to talk about it openly, so that that person didn't then go on to reoffend and harm more people. So from a religious standpoint, getting guilted into forgiving someone and forgetting about it means sweeping it under the rug and not talking about it. So the likelihood is greater that that person is going to feel like they got away with it scot-free, and they're going to go on and reoffend. Now, again, this doesn't apply to every single person in every single situation. Some people, having harmed someone, feel so terrible about it that they go on and blame themselves, and they really do some introspection, and they promise they're not going to harm someone else again. They really do change their lives to make sure that doesn't happen again. However, I think it's really important to consider the fact that there are a lot of offenders out there who consider relationships and people as transactional. There are people out there who don't consider the feelings of others because they're literally not able to. And so they look at harming somebody the same as throwing away a paper cup. Like, they just literally don't care about it. And if they're not held accountable for that behavior, they will continue to do it over and over and harm people over and over. And so this is one of the things about victimization that I think is a really difficult conversation to have. When we as victims consider whether or not to come forward, we have all these considerations. We have family relationships to consider. We have societal relationships to consider. A lot of us get guilted and shamed into not reporting things because, oh, you're going to ruin the life of somebody. And this happened so many times in the Mormon church. Friends of mine who said, oh, I don't want to report so-and-so because they're getting ready to go on a mission. And if I report it, they won't be able to go. There'll be all kinds of shame. Guess what? Who cares? The consequences of what they face after your report is not your responsibility. And what I try to think about more often than not is not only my own mental health in the fact that if I don't speak up and say something, I'm betraying myself, but also if I don't say something, I'm enabling that abuser to go on and abuse future victims. Now, again, I realize this is super complicated. And over the times in my life that I have been victimized, there were times when I chose to speak up, and there were times when I chose not to speak up. There were times when I made reports and times that I chose not to make reports. All of those things were based on my circumstances at the time and what was best for me and best for other people in the future too. Like, I realize that I can't save everybody from future abuse, even if I do make a report. I can't guarantee that my report is going to help someone else or prevent someone else from being harmed. And sometimes when I made a choice not to report, it was based on the futility of my report and the amount of emotional, psychological toll it was going to take on me to, number one, not be believed, number two, have to defend my position, and number three, not get any result anyway. So I think it is super complicated, and I don't ever want to judge or shame anyone for reporting or for not reporting, for forgiving or for not forgiving. It is completely 100% an individual decision that's based on the circumstances. But I think what we need to normalize is the fact that forgiveness is an individual decision, and we need to stop putting out these platitudes like, oh, if you forgive them, you're going to feel so much better. It's a release of, the negative feelings on your part, and it's about you, not about them. And I just think it's complicated, and we need to allow people the space to either forgive or not forgive based on their individual circumstances. The reason that I play this clip by Dr. Ramani is because I think I want people to consider the fact that it's possible to have peace about a situation and a relationship with a person without forgiving them. It is very possible to just be peaceful about that within yourself without saying, like, I forgive you, without vocalizing it to them or even acknowledging it to yourself. There are a lot of situations in my life where I'm like, no, I don't forgive that person. I don't, because what they took from me is not something that can ever be replaced. And even if they apologize to me or ask me for forgiveness right now, today, it doesn't change what they stole from me. It doesn't allow for recompense for what was taken from me. And so it is a very personal decision whether someone wants to forgive or not. And I will say too that forgiving someone does not necessarily guarantee you that you're going to have peace over the situation. There have been times where I've forgiven someone and then put myself in a position where they harmed me again. And so I learned my lesson. So kind of what I said at the end of the video with Colby was that we can forgive people, but then we use that experience that we had to inform our future interaction with that person. So in my mind, if you do decide to forgive someone, you don't forget how they treated you. You don't forget the outcome of that interaction. You use that as a data point to say, okay, I'm going to be more cautious when interacting with this person. And I'm going to take the time to consider whether or not I want to become vulnerable to this person and what I'm going to share with this person in the future and the different interactions that I'm going to have or not have based on how they treated me last time. I think the forgive and forget concept is super harmful because if we forget about what was done, then we literally open ourselves up to be harmed and abused again. So I want to hear your thoughts. Some of you are putting up some comments, and I think this is great. I always love how you guys interact with each other in the chat. I always see kind and respectful, and I love that. Thank you guys for being here. MB, I think this is totally true. Forgiveness is a personal journey. No one can speak for another person's needs or judge anyone for how they deal with forgiveness in whatever way. Forgiveness is a very Christian concept. It is a biblical concept. There are some scriptures in Psalms and in the Old Testament, but they mainly talk about forgiveness between yourself and God or yourself and your higher power. So This idea of forgiving other people is a different concept entirely, I think, than seeking forgiveness from your higher power. I like what Aaron says, a personal decision, and hopefully after competent therapy, I think people need time to recover from what's been done for them. And I totally, totally agree with this. If you're being pressured to forgive someone, especially if it's the person that harmed you, take a step back, take time, go speak with a competent therapist, take some time to reflect, make some decisions like away from whatever the person that harmed you is telling them. Because a lot of times what happens is someone harms you, whether it's intentional or unintentional, they feel conflicted and horrible about it. And what they want is for you to say, I forgive you, so that they can stop having an internal conflict about it. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to yourself and to your own healing. Your responsibility is never to absolve the difficult feelings that come up for someone who has harmed you. That's their responsibility to fix. It's up to them to resolve the conflict that they have over what they did to you. And nobody should forgive another person in order to help that other person feel better. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to yourself and your own healing. So, and I like what Reflections of Me says, some days I can forgive, other days I unforgive. I waffle. It's not weird. It's not weird at all. It's totally human, normative human behavior to have conflicting feelings about whether to forgive someone or not. Because ultimately what we want as human beings is to be at peace. We want to feel peaceful about our relationships and our interactions with other people. And when we've been harmed by someone, the sort of easiest shortcut way to peace is to just say, oh, I forgive you. It's okay. Like if somebody apologizes to us, what do we say? That's okay. It's not okay. And we don't have to automatically spit that out. It's fine for us to say, you know what? I need to take a minute and think about how I feel about this. Kimmy Jo, thank you for sharing this. Your brother went no contact with your brother, but he took something from me I can never get back ever. Like, yes. And that's exactly what Dr. Ramani is talking about. When someone takes something from you that you can't get back, how do you forgive that? And how do you not have resentment for it? Me personally, talking about my very earliest abusers when I was a 7-year-old child, they stole my childhood from me. They stole my ability to just think and feel as a normal child. They instilled ideas in me that were wrong and horrible, and that it took me decades to dissolve. It took me decades to undo the programming that I received from those people. So, do I forgive them? No, because they stole something from me that can never be repaid. It can never be undone. And no amount of them expressing contrition can bring back the years that I lost as a child and the childhood that I could never reclaim that. I can never relive that. Do I hold resentment towards them? Well, to the extent that I say, like, yeah, I totally resent the fact that they stole those years from me, and there's nothing that can be done to repair that. Do I hold on to resentment? Do I constantly think about it? No. I sleep fine at night. I don't think about them ever, except when I'm talking about things like this. And so are they continuing to steal time from me? No. Are they taking up my emotional energy? No. Do I reserve energy in order to resent them or hate them? No. So in that regard, I have let go of a lot of things, but you're never going to ask me like, hey, what about those people? Like, did you ever forgive them? Nope. I don't think I'm ever going to get to a place in my life where I'm like, yeah, they're forgiven. I don't harbor them any ill will. One of them has died. Am I sad about that? Absolutely not. I think the world is a better place without him on the planet. Am I sad about the fact that one of the other surviving abusers has kind of a hard life? Nope. I don't. I'm not sad about that. Um, all I want is for my life to be peaceful moving forward. And so I've gotten to the point where I loved this expression. I forget where it came from. Like it might have been Seinfeld, but it was like, I don't love you. I don't hate you. I nothing you. I literally have no energy to contribute towards a feeling for you. Um, I've gotten to the point where I want to express how I feel about that situation. And when I'm doing podcasts or lives like this, where people ask me about that situation in my life, I'm going to be very definitive about how I feel about it. But does it take up space in my brain on a daily basis? Absolutely not. I only engage in those conversations to help other people who are healing from the same type of abuse to understand that you can get to a place where it's not a thing that you think about on a daily basis. Because prior to my healing and my therapy journey, it was something that I thought about every single day. It was something that affected me every single day. I had all of these negative emotions about what happened and about the people who did that to me. But now I'm at a space where I only talk about it when I'm trying to help other people heal. I only think about it at those times, and I don't lend any of my daily energy to that. So I don't know. It's a complicated thing for a lot of reasons. Michael says it's hard enough to deal with healing from the effect of the abuse without having to add pressure to forgive the unforgivable. I agree with that. Lee here says forgiveness, like respect, should be earned if at all possible. Some acts are not forgivable. Yes, and some people are never going to do the work to even try to earn any sort of forgiveness from you. So you might as well not be waiting around for that. And Destiny, I like this comment. Reporting isn't the end all be all. A lot of people think it is. It's harder than most people realize when they passionately proclaim it. It's difficult to be believed. When I reported my abuse for the first time to a law enforcement officer, I felt like I had to prove myself all over again. I felt like I was being gaslighted all over again. And then, what ended up coming of it is like, well, we had an interview with the abuser. Of course, they denied everything. And absent having some kind of concrete proof, there's really nothing we can do. So do you re-traumatize yourself by making the report, not being believed, and then not having anything to be done about it? It's completely up to the individual person. I felt like saying it out loud was important, but there have been times when I have chosen not to report things as well. Aaron says, those who are in a position to do reporting, like law enforcement or child protective services. Yeah, so I had to do a lot of reporting of abuse when I was a teacher. I was a mandated reporter. And so if I suspected that a child was being abused, or if they came to me as an outcry person and reported some kind of abuse, I had an obligation to call Child Protective Services and make a report about it. So in that case, I didn't have a choice. And I always tried to do everything that I could to advocate for children, especially those who don't feel like they have, a voice for themselves. So if you're a mandated reporter, of course you report every time. And in general, I'm in favor of reporting, even if it doesn't end up in some kind of a conviction or some kind of consequences, because then at least you're making a record of an interaction that was harmful. So then the next time somebody else experiences something, they come forward, there's already a record. So, but you have to gauge, how you feel and whether or not it's something that you can endure as well. Like sometimes people say that the not being believed part is more traumatizing than the actual event. And I certainly experienced that for myself as well, especially not being believed by people who were supposed to be my caregivers. That was really difficult too. So, Travel with Flower says forgiveness needs time. I totally agree with that. It requires a lot of thinking and introspection. Spring 20, I'm a teacher and personally know of colleagues that turn a blind eye, whom I've personally reported for not reporting. This is one of the things that gets me more fired up than anything else. As a teacher, when I found out about situations where other teachers were abusing students, and it was like a widely known fact, and other teachers and faculty members were not saying anything, that infuriates me. Because if you're a mandated reporter and you have minor children under your care and you're turning a blind eye rather than reporting something, man, like that's worse to me than the actual abuse. And so, I sort of gained a reputation as somebody who was like, I'm gonna report it. Like if I see something, I'm gonna say something. And I don't really care about the consequences for you. If that means you lose your job, you do. Um, and I guess, I don't know, people viewed me as somebody who is problematic in that way for that reason, but I'll be damned if I'm going to stand aside and watch another teacher abuse a student and not say something. Like that's unforgivable to me. So Lee here, this is an interesting contemplation too. I'm an atheist. I have no higher power. How to live in reality in the now, accepting that I'm responsible for myself and how I react to others to bring well-being to myself and others. When you don't have a higher power or religious system that you're reporting to, you get to decide your own morality and how you want to show up in the world and how you want to interact with other human beings. And I honestly have run across so many atheists who have better personal accountability than people who are in religious systems. So many times in the LDS faith, there were people who are like, oh, I'm going to go to my bishop and confess. And then the bishop is like, well, you're doing your best. Let's not make a big deal of it. And then the victims are the ones who pay for that because the bishop then tells the victims, oh, he's confessed, you should forgive him and just move on. In a religious system, it gets really complicated, and sometimes it's worse when there's no system. Yeah, and Aaron clarifies reporting to the state, mandatory reporting of those in a position where it's the law. Yes. I like this idea. Getting rid of the anger is and was my goal. And I think that's really important. I think it's important to express anger in healthy ways. And because when we get betrayed or abused, I think that's the emotion that comes up more often than anything else is anger. And when we, especially as females in the United States, we get pressured into being nice, to being kind, to being good. And if we get angry, we get labeled as difficult, problematic. We need to be able to express our anger in healthy ways so that it doesn't later come out in dysfunctional ways. So there's that. Yes, the goal is apathy. I identify with this. Shelley Flowers saying I spend a significant amount of time evaluating how I feel. I do the same thing. It is super complicated for those of us who are empaths because we don't want anyone else to suffer. But this is a good point. Some people don't even care that they've hurt you. They're totally ambivalent. And some people who endure abuse have been told it's their fault. Overcoming this and giving yourself a break from blame is so hard. It is really, really hard. It's so difficult to unpack so many of these things. So all I want to say is that it's an individual choice. That forgiveness is complicated. And that if you have been harmed by someone, I hope that you're not waiting around for that someone to ask for forgiveness or to apologize, because that's not what you need to heal. What you need to heal is to make peace within yourself, to forgive yourself for whatever circumstance you were in, and to get to the point where you can peacefully let go of the feelings that you have. having expressed your anger, having expressed your frustration, having made a report or not made a report based on what's best for you, and not holding yourself at fault for what happened. So first of all, like if you've been harmed, it's 100% not your fault. It's the person who harmed you. And if you choose to report it and they suffer consequences for it, good. It's not your responsibility to take care of what happens after you make a report. The person who harmed you should have taken responsibility before they harmed you. And if you report something and it results in negative consequences for someone else, that's not your responsibility. That's not on your side of the street to take care of. I want to listen to just a little bit more of this video with Dr. Ramani. So I'm going to play this again real quick. I really want to hear the last bit of this. This is important, I think, anyways. As always, technical difficulties are fun for me to navigate. Somehow ended up in a separate tab, and there we go. Okay, here we go.
You forget
That's
that.
frustrating. That's frustrating. I guess the thing would be, how do we find peace even if we don't forgive
I think that
someone?
people who don't forgive definitely feel peace.
Okay.
I think people who don't feel peace are the people who forgive and keep getting harmed.
Oh, that's
Are the
true.
people who forgive and weren't ready to forgive.
I
Healing
agree.
from narcissistic abuse is individuating, becoming autonomous, and ultimately rising into your authentic self. That's what it is. And your authentic self may not forgive. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Totally.
If you don't forgive, do you feel like you can truly heal?
Yes, 100%. 100%. Because not forgiving is an acknowledgement, right?
Yep.
I have
Yep.
talked to people who have their children returned against them. How do you forgive that? I have talked to people where their narcissistic partner put their kids in harm's way. How do you forgive that? I have talked to people who have watched their life savings get squandered by how do you forgive that?
Yeah.
How do you forgive these things? And those are just practical. I mean, children is emotional, but like some of them are practical. But I actually think the worst part is that this is somebody who left you feeling not enough, like there was something wrong with you when you were bringing the best of yourself forward. I have a problem with that. And
Yeah.
I tell
Yeah.
folks, some people get there. You know, some people will say, I was 10 years out. I fell in love with someone. I learned more about myself. I recognized that they were the one they were the ones who were carrying all the wounds. And I did forgive them. But many people will say, I was not able to forgive until I went no contact.
Yeah.
Mm.
You had a lot of time to heal and space.
And I'd not be
yeah,
harmed
yeah,
by the
yeah.
they said some people say I forgave after they died.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they didn't hear it. But I think that we have this big pressure of forgive and
You
everything
don't
will
have
be
to
fine.
forgive them, like say it to them, but
Mm.
more to yourself.
Internally.
Say, yeah.
Right. But I in the cases I'm talking about, these people, I don't forgive.
Wow.
I really, really don't. It was wrong. It was wrong. And I know they keep doing wrong. And it harms me because like it changed my insides.
Right.
And while I can take responsibility for my insides, why that wasn't okay. And I'm very, very clear on this with survivors. That's why that section of the book is called The Treachery of Forgiveness.
The treachery of
Mm.
forgiveness.
I mean, anyone wants to hate on me for it. I'm like,
Yeah, so I just want to pause to say that Dr. Ramani has a book out called It's Not You. It's about healing from narcissistic abuse. And one of the chapters is called The Tyranny of Forgiveness. And it's this concept about how we get shamed into forgiving people before we're ready. And then we forgive them, and then we end up being harmed later on, or we suffer negative mental health consequences because we've forgiven this person, but we really still resent what they did to us, and we really still grieve the time that we lost and all of those things. So forgiving before you're ready to forgive is going to have a negative effect on your mental health.
God, bring it, because I would say talk to a survivor, and I hope there's survivors listening to this who say, thank you for giving me that permission. Some people will say, look, I got to 85. I've worked with older survivors, and some folks have been, for example, through like family systems, they'll say never. I've heard the range of it, And it's
Yeah.
and I'll tell you, and some people listen, some people will say things that might seem mild to other people. Like, you can't forgive that. I said, if they can't forgive that, then they can't forgive that. Accept that, and these are not petty people. They really aren't. And they're not, and the criticism I've heard people get when they say they don't forgive is like, you're petty. You're the one with all the anger. You're the one with all
Mm,
the hate in your heart. I'm like, no, they're not. No, they're not. That it's a very personal decision, but I think
yeah.
because we view it as a one size fits all, and I think that then what happens is people can then allow their process. I think healing is easier when you know you don't have to forgive, because forgiveness is about the other person. Everyone's like, no, forgiveness is about yourself. No, it's not. Because you know what a narcissistic person does with forgiveness? Or like,
Let me get back in there.
get out of jail free card. I guess I can
Nothing
do
I
this
did
Exactly.
was
again.
wrong. Yeah.
Or nothing.
Exactly. And that's the whole point that I really wanted to talk about more than anything else. And I'm glad, Inner Peace, that you mentioned this, because this is the whole reason we're having this conversation. After Colby told his mom he forgives her, but he didn't want to be a part of her life, she said, "How is that forgiveness?" Because a person with a personality disorder views forgiveness in a very different way than rational people view forgiveness. When rational people talk about forgiveness, they mean, you know what? I recognize that you did something that harmed me, and I don't hold you any ill will for that. It sucks that it happened, but I'm willing to continue to engage in a relationship with you because I recognize that you're contrite and that you want to move forward in a better way and to do better in the future. That's one scenario, right? Between two rational human beings. When you are dealing with a person who has mental illness or personality disorder and you forgive them, the way they see it is, okay, that means that what I did was okay and I can do it again. And in some situations, it emboldens them to continue that treatment. A lot of times when you forgive someone who is narcissistic or psychopathic or whatever the case is, cluster A, cluster B personality disorders, they take that forgiveness as acceptance of what you've done. And when they say, I want you to forgive me, that means I want to go back to the way things were before you knew that I was a bad person, and where our relationship can be the same and I can continue to control you and to harm you over and over again. That's what a person with a personality disorder wants when they are asking for forgiveness, or their frame of mind around forgiveness is, I want everything to go back to the way it was when I could still control you and abuse you. They're not talking about the concept of forgiveness as in, like, I want you to let go of the ill feelings that you have towards me. That doesn't even enter into the equation for them. All they want is to continue to have access to control you and abuse you. That's all they want. So when Colby said, I forgive you, but I don't want you in my life, that's a healthy boundary. That's a way to say, like, I release these negative feelings that I have towards you, but you're not allowed to come past this point because this is where my boundary is. And what Lori wanted Colby to say was, there is no boundary. You can have full access to me and to my kids and to my family to continue to try and control us, to put your narrative out there, to get us to believe your narrative. That's what Lori wants. That's what all abusers want. When they ask for forgiveness, they want access to you to control you. And that's what upset Lori about that. Yeah. She wanted complete forgiveness and was trying to convince him or connive him back into her life. It was maddening to hear. And to repeat the patterns of abuse. Exactly. So anytime you are in an interaction with somebody who is shaming you for not forgiving them and saying, you need to just forgive me, you need to move on. I heard this continually in my marriage, where my ex-spouse would say, that was years ago, can't you just let it go? And the empath in me, the religious part of me, the forgiver part of me wanted to say, yes, I forgive you. We can move forward. But when I started going to therapy and realized that I needed to prioritize my mental health, what I said was, I'm not going to harbor ill will towards you, but I'm going to use that experience to inform my future interactions with you to know that I can't trust you to take care of me emotionally. I can't trust you with my innermost thoughts because you're going to use them against me. I can't trust you to be a safe person to come to when I have problems or questions because you don't treat me with kindness and respect. So I'm going to use those experiences to inform what I do with you in the future. Now I'm going to limit my communication with you in the future because I know I can't trust you as a safe person for every type of communication. So this is super demeaning. Your ex-husband telling you you're having a female moment. I'm sorry. Men experience shifts in emotion and hormonal swings in a cyclical fashion, just like women do. So if someone tells you you're having a female moment, it's like, well, you don't realize it, but you go through these things too. And that's super demeaning and disrespectful. Yeah, Lori was beside herself that Colby could have boundaries. Narcissists and people with personality disorders hate boundaries because it means that they don't have the ability to control you anymore. So, yeah, it is okay not to forgive someone, and your feelings are valid no matter what they are. It's your responsibility to work through your feelings. And I always hate it when I come across like the David Goggins type of mentality that says F your feelings, right? Because to a certain extent, like, yes, you can use your feelings as an excuse. You can blame other people for your problems. You can blame other people for where you are in life. But if we're being really responsible about our feelings, we need to honor the feelings that we have and then use them to inform our decisions, but not necessarily live there in a victim mentality where we're constantly blaming someone else. So it's wonderful to acknowledge our feelings and then work through them with a great deal of personal responsibility for how we react to other people's mistreatment of us. Anna Frankel, I like this. Sandra Brown tried 30 years to help narcissists and psychos until she realized she was being played by her patients. Women Who Love Psychopaths Inside Relationships by Sandra L. Brown, Jennifer Young. My therapist will not work with people who have personality disorders because largely they cannot be healed because they don't have the skill that it takes to have introspection and to recognize their own responsibility in what's happening to them. So there is a lot of evidence out there that narcissists and psychopaths cannot be healed. And so if you know that you have someone in your life with those traits, set really excellent boundaries and do not engage with them on a level that is unhealthy for you. Yeah, so my forgiveness, Reflections of Me says, my forgiveness to someone was never of value as they never acknowledged anything to forgive, and my feelings didn't count, so my forgiving was valueless. Yeah, so if someone can't even admit that what they've done to you was harmful, it's pointless to tell them that you forgive them because they believe there was nothing to forgive in the first place. So when I say, to a family member, what you did to me was abusive, and they say, well, I never intended to abuse you. So am I supposed to just say, oh, well, if you didn't intend to, then I totally forgive you? No. What I say is, doesn't matter whether you intended to or not. What you did was abusive and it harmed me. So therefore, I can't really offer, like, it's not my responsibility to offer you absolution for that. You have to make peace with that on yourself. You harmed me. What you choose to do with that information, not my responsibility. So anyway, this is a complicated topic. It's one that I got a lot of comments about. It's one that I think we as survivors, as human beings in this world, need to make some separations around what it means to forgive someone from a religious concept and what it means to have healthy boundaries from a mental health standpoint, because I think they're two separate things. And what I would love is for people to get to the point where they make that separation and that differentiation so that they create healthy boundaries around people who have harmed them in the past, and then take that information forward into the future to inform whether or not they have interaction with that person, or how limited that interaction is, or how much they let that person into their lives. So that's kind of what I have to say about forgiveness. I hope that the group coaching discussion at the beginning, I would love to hear your comments about that. If you're watching this on the replay, please leave your comments on the video, because I will see those and read them. The best thing to do is go to third-verse.com, sign up for that free 15 or 20-minute consult, which then I can talk to you about what you need individually and help plug you into the right resource, where it's whether it's individual coaching or group coaching. I am super, super excited to connect with more of you. The thing that I love the most is connecting with you, hearing your stories, and helping to plug you into the resources that are going to help you move forward in your life, accomplish your goals, heal, have healthier relationships, and have peace in your life. What I want more than anything else is to help people have a more peaceful life. And if my suffering previously in my life and my healing journey can help someone else to avoid all of the years of negative feelings that I went through before I found healing, then that is so worth it to me. It is what I love more than anything else. So I wish you all the best on your healing journey. If you have questions about forgiveness or anything else, please put them in the comments. I love to tailor these Sunday evening live chats to what you personally want to cover and what you personally need to talk about and to untangle in your life. So I'm just hopeful that this discussion has been helpful for you. If it has, please like the episode. Please share it with someone. The best way to support the channel in a free way is to subscribe. Over half of the people who watch my videos are not subscribers. So if you can just subscribe, that'd be great. If you have the means to become a channel member, I do release members only content. Coming soon is going to be more members only lives and more group coaching situations for those of you who either don't want to do individual coaching or just want to have less of a commitment to it. I'm really excited about doing some small group coaching and having you guys help each other through specific topics that are going to be healing for you. So look forward to more content coming this week about Secret Lives of Mormon Wives commentary, and another episode release on Wednesday about religious deconstruction. The moment I lost my Mormon faith, I literally have it recorded on a video that I'm going to post on the channel later. And we're going to talk about rebuilding and what healthy spirituality looks like. That's coming, as well as more discussions about how to heal. And as always, the content on this channel is driven largely by what you as viewers and subscribers and channel members want to hear. So if there's a topic you'd like me to cover, please email me, Megan@third-verse.com, or leave it in the comments. I'm so grateful for you guys. Thanks for showing up tonight. Thanks for everything you contribute to the channel. I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care of each other, but most importantly, take care of yourself.